Ciao a tutti,
Ciao,
Ciao
benvenuti.
a questa nuova puntata dello youBEAT Cafè.
anzi, prima puntata dopo tanto tempo, quindi un
Siamo
recupero dello
tornati.
youBEAT Café
Siamo tornati più forti che mai. Come
con
state?
nuovi volti, Ele.
Ele?
Io no, purtroppo mi avete già visto, mi dispiace. Sono sempre io.
Il
No,
vostro
io
capo.
sto bene, ragazzi, un po' in coma ancora dopo Nameless, ma dai,
Mamma
si
mia,
riprende.
è stato un ritorno a dir poco scoppiettante. A me quei 4 giorni sono volati in una maniera assurda, non so voi, ma sono entrata il giorno 1, ho sbattuto gli occhi, c'erano già i fuochi d'artificio del giorno 4.
Già. Però ci voleva decisamente, no?
Sì, assolutamente
Sì,
sì.
sì, sì, non sembrava vero essere là, essere tornati finalmente dopo 2 anni di pandemia e di stop totale.
È
Bello
stata...
veramente.
Non vedevo l'ora che arrivasse. È arrivato e come è arrivato è andato via e con quello è arrivata la depressione post-festival.
Beh,
Tutte
però
le cose
dai.
belle durano troppo poco.
Diciamo che è un po' l'inizio della festival season, però dai, tutto sommato quest'estate di cose ce ne sono.
L'estate è fatta per stare fuori, si torna a casa solo per dormire, o forse neanche per quello.
Neanche per quello.
Di contenuti ce ne saranno parecchi, e non solo dall'Italia, mettiamola così.
Direi che avremo un bel po' da fare, però è bello così, no? Tornando al discorso di prima, ci sta, assolutamente.
Dopo 2 anni di chiusura a casa, restrizioni, era diciamo un po' quello che ci voleva per tornare a respirare una boccata d'aria.
Sì, ma se avete visto anche voi a Nameless, cioè si respirava proprio quest'aria anche da parte di chiunque si trovava in giro, cioè chiunque aveva voglia di far festa, infatti il clima bellissimo anche tra le persone, quindi veramente un mood strapositivo.
La cosa più bella è stata proprio ritrovare tutte le persone che per un bel po' di tempo non sei riuscito a vedere.
Poi una cosa che io ho notato a livello personale, perché l'ho provato sulla mia pelle, è che tante persone con cui magari nel 2019 avevi, non so, litigato, comunque c'erano state dei dissapori, qualcosa, si è archiviato tutto e si è tornato a far festa, perché si è diffuso questo pensiero che eravamo tutti stanchi di restare chiusi a casa e che non c'era più spazio né tempo per queste rivalità inutili, per queste cavolate. Quindi il clima di unità che è stato citato prima si è rafforzato ed è una cosa che veramente mi ha fatto tanto tanto piacere perché mi sono ritrovata a far festa con le ultime persone che mi sarei aspettata nel 2019.
Oggi siamo qui anche per introdurre una, come dire, una nuova tecnologia di fatto che darà una bella spinta proprio anche al mondo degli eventi e al mondo della anche nightlife in generale, quindi a breve arriverà il nostro ospite.
Il modo di vivere la musica e gli eventi è cambiato tanto anche grazie alla pandemia. Cioè non si può, diciamo, dare la colpa solamente appunto al periodo di fermo, perché comunque questo ha permesso anche di creare qualcosa di nuovo in realtà che prima non
Infatti,
c'era.
è stato chi, diciamo, in pandemia non si è lasciato scoraggiare, non si è buttato giù, ma anzi ha creato qualcosa di effettivamente nuovo.
Vedete il caso di Nameless che aveva fatto il format, come si chiamava? Timeless, quello in
Vero, sì.
Italia con i DJ.
Tanti altri festival in realtà hanno cercato esatto di rimanere un po' sul pezzo, di cavalcare la cresta dell'onda e permettere lo stesso comunque ai fan che magari stavano aspettando proprio quell'anno lì, il 2020, per andare finalmente a quel festival e non sono potuti per via della pandemia, di vivere un minimo quella che era l'esperienza, per quanto tramite PC o comunque altri devices, però comunque rimanere in quello che è il mood del festival. Poi ormai le visual possono essere utilizzate per qualsiasi cosa, quindi anche la sagra del pollo puoi mettere degli effetti visivi non indifferenti.
Esatto, metti un bel pollo arrosto che gira.
Sapere che ci sono alcune tecnologie che stanno veramente facendo il boom adesso mi rende anche in un certo senso orgoglioso, perché ricordo i primi caffè che facevamo.
Per questo noi spingiamo sul continuare a finanziare gli eventi dal vivo, ragazzi, perché cioè, nulla può sostituirli. Ecco.
Interrompo
È arrivato.
il programma per presentarvi l'ospite che ci sta aspettando nella sala d'attesa e lo facciamo entrare subito. Un bel applauso per Mitchell Bayer-Goldman.
Hey guys.
Hello, Mitchell.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Are you okay?
Exactly.
How are you doing?
Good, yeah. It's been a busy couple of weeks, to say the least. Yeah, I just got back from New York on Monday morning. Thought it'd be a good idea, as always, to do a red-eye flight. So Sunday, 11 p.m. New York into London. Obviously, didn't sleep a minute, and that was on the back of a very hectic week anyway. Yes, just about recovered. Caught up last night, and then ahead of a very crazy schedule of events next week.
That's quite impressive.
How are you guys doing?
With it.
Tell me about it. How are you guys doing?
Well, pretty good.
Good.
Fine,
Thank you.
thanks.
I don't know the weather there, but here there's so much hot weather.
Hot.
And
Very hot.
it's summer. Summer's come and the temperatures are high as hell.
It is pretty warm here, actually, which is a rarity if you've ever been to London.
Yes.
Exactly. I feel like I've been following the sun a little bit because I was lucky in New York. It was really nice and lovely, and then the Sunday started turning to rain and thunderstorms, and I've come here and now it's sunny again. So there's a little bit of luck there. It's a rarity, to say the least.
Okay, let's not waste time, and I'll start with asking you a quick question just as a warm-up. So we know you manage a platform about 3D live experience. So would you like to tell us something about your job and the platform itself? So just a quick introduction.
Sure. So I guess my name's Mitchell. I'm one of the co-founders and COO of Volta XR, rather. What we do is we help artists, events, venue organizers essentially create 3D experiences, all for the comfort from their home. So rather than, let's say, that kind of cohort having to go to a production studio, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on bespoke content, they can just simply download our free tool and drag and drop kind of 3D objects to make a 3D experience, which can then all be broadcasted to any screen. So that could be screened live in a venue on the LED walls or a projector. It could be live streamed, or to be honest, what we're doing lots of at the moment is hybrid. It's both. So actually helping festivals and artists who are doing something in a club or a venue create very compelling visual content for those screens, but then broadcast that experience to live streaming platforms to really help add scale.
It's so innovative. Cool. It's innovative for this panorama, so it's quite impressive. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you.
Mitchell, taking up of what you've said, we'd like to know what are the favorite tools of extended reality creators, and what is the reaction from the spectators?
Do you mean favorite tools? Like what sort of things people are doing?
Yes, tools that you use and Volta XR use in your work.
Yeah, so I mean, favorite tooling. I mean, to be honest, mixed reality is quite a challenging concept. There aren't really any tools out there that enable musicians to do things musically. You've got sort of your typical sort of 3D kind of tools that are typically used by people like architects and engineers, but those are very highly technical, usually require coding and a lot of experience. As far as the music scene goes, we're still unaware of any other tooling that actually can help sort of make these mixed reality experiences. We are the only ones that's created it as a tool. Typically, to do these experiences, you need to go to a production studio. And when you think of things like a production studio, typically this is kind of what we saw happen at the beginning of the pandemic. So, the pandemic happened, and essentially only the world's largest artists, I mean, really the kind of the mega stars of Rihanna and Beyonce and Travis Scott, dare I say it, could even do these mixed reality experiences because they had to go to a production studio. And that essentially meant multi-million-dollar budgets with 6 to 12 months of lead time, incredibly tech-savvy engineers that are able to work with things like motion capture suits and other kind of CGI rendering. So we really are the only tooling in the market that can actually help creators make their own mixed reality experiences. In terms of the reaction on that very basis has been very positive because we've democratized the technology away from the studio and away from kind of only for the big names and enabled every artist from you know, from your high profile names all the way through to bedroom DJs and aspiring rookies, to be able to create visually compelling experiences. You know, and if I was to kind of compare and contrast, let's say mixed reality to typically what you could do in 2D, you know, in 2D, you have tools that some artists and visual VJs rather use, like Resolume and Touch Designer. But typically the problem there is, you know, what you're essentially creating is 2D content. So it can look quite flat. There isn't a sense of movement through a space. And it also means that then when you use those kind of typical 2D visuals, the 2D stream, like on YouTube or you know, on Twitch, is kind of like a visualizer. There isn't really much more to it. So the very fact that we've kind of created a piece of software that makes a 3D space, allows a sense of movement through that space, and then essentially can blend what is happening real in venue. So let's say a presence of the artist and a volumetric capture of a real artist rather than an avatar, blending it with visuals that are audio reactive, so in time with the beat, and actually have a sense of movement. You know, it's really engaged fans in a way that's been very positively surprising for us.
It's very interesting. Thanks for your answer. And now talking about the artists you work with, we know that recently you have done a music video for Imogen Heap. And how did the idea of making a new music video in real time was born? What was it like working with her?
Yeah, I mean, very, very good question. To be honest, it was one of those surprise moments, because I think that's one of the things, you know, when you're building a tool, a creative tool, quite often people end up using your tool in ways that were unexpected. So at that point in time, when Imogen did her music video with us, she'd sort of racked up over 12 or 15 hours of using Volta for live streaming, and sort of came with the effect of, hey, I want to make a music video. I've got a new single that's being released, but I can't go to a production studio because they're closed because of the pandemic. So essentially the idea was born from that kind of very narrative. And, you know, what we essentially did was that, you know, being COVID friendly, we went to her barn in the middle of England. We essentially created a kind of a 3D replica of her actual barn, and essentially meant that we were able to overlay the physical barn with what we created as a virtual barn. And that's where the music video was shot. And a lot of the inspiration behind it was when we were talking through, you know, the merits of being built on a game engine. So Volta's built on Unity. It's, you know, one of the two main game engines between Unity and Unreal. It means that things are rendered live in real time. So essentially, it was a great exercise and a big marketing initiative where we kind of collaboratively thought that, okay, what if we have one live stream running on YouTube, which essentially is the music video. It's Imogen dancing, you know, she's got a choreographed dance moving through her barn whilst our visuals are encapsulating things. But at the same time, we had another live stream going on, which was direct to the fans. And the fans would essentially watch, you know, the music video happening live, and essentially were typing in chat the things that they liked, the things that they didn't like. And essentially was this co-creative experience. So the fans were giving her input in real time about what things they liked and didn't like. And essentially was, I think, was the 8th take that she ended up using with no post-production to push out as her official music video.
Yes, it's very interesting because you have an artist and the fan that collaborate together. And I think this is the most beautiful thing ever.
Absolutely. Real-time feedback. And that was the kind of advantage there.
Mitchell, I have a question for you, because you were talking about collaborations. So I would like to ask you, after your collaboration with Native Instruments, are you planning other collaborations with other brands? Can you tell us something more?
Another good question. Yeah, we've, you know, as you called out, we now have a native integration with Native Instruments. So now whenever you download Tractor, I think 3.5.2 and above, we are there as a direct mapping. You know, a huge advantage of that partnership is Tractor users don't need to do anything. They simply load their Tractor session, they load Volta, all the mappings from Tractor appear in Volta. So it means that any 3D object like a palm tree or a spaceship can be controlled directly from Tractor. So if I'm a DJ, and let's say I apply a certain effect, it could actually affect the visuals at the same time it's affecting the music. So the DJ only has to think around their music. You know, they don't have to think through the visual lens, because quite often, you know, musicians are trained in the form of audio, not in the form of visuals, and the two are pulled apart. In terms of other partnerships we're exploring, I mean, we've already partnered with people like Beatport, which has been fantastic to power their both their Reconnect live streaming series, but also to work with their artists, as well as companies like Pixel Links, which is a collective headed up by deadmau5 and Richie Horton, that we're very proud to be a part. In terms of the next sort of stages, of course, we're talking to all the major manufacturers and hardware providers. You know, Ableton, for example, we're very close with. They have open APIs, so we built tooling that goes, again, native into Ableton. And now, just recently, in the next Volta release, which will be out in 2 weeks approximately, we've actually added, I believe, every Serato Pioneer controller to the mix. So if you're using a Serato setup, or indeed even just a straight Pioneer DJM, those mappings are now inherent in Volta. So again, the whole initiative around our partnerships and the people we work with is, how do we make it as easy as possible for artists to get started, to create visually compelling material that actually engages their fans?
I think this is very, very cool, because I'm a DJ too, and this is something that I definitely want to use, want to experience, because it's completely something completely new to experience. And I think that your way to use it in a very easy way is very, very nice. So thank you. As a DJ, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Look, I mean, I'm a DJ myself, and I think that's something that a lot of the companies in this space, you know, the music tech or metaverse space, you know, they're typically tech or engineers first rather than music first, and often are applying ways of thinking that just, they don't understand the difficulties of what an artist has to go through. You know, so for us, making it as easy as physically possible to help enable artists is always been a North Star for us. And secondly, you know, as we sort of explore this sort of setup, what we've learned is from tons of research and surveys that, interestingly, the biggest thing that artists want to learn and want to bring to their performances is visual effects. We asked, I think it was over 300 or 400 participants, you know, what are you most interested in learning in your craft? Is it mastering? Is it DJing itself? Is it songwriting? And interestingly, yeah, visual effects came out as number one. 55% of all participants responded saying that is the thing they want to do the most. And I think it's because, you know, we've seen what's happened during the pandemic, where, of course, there was a huge move to live streaming. Those that couldn't do visual effects felt like they were behind the curve against those that maybe were able to build things on game engines. But that trend has only continued, right? Because, you know, if you look back in the 1960s, it was all around musical virtuosity. You know, you'd go to a concert, you'd see a band on the stage. It was this very unilateral, band plays, everyone applauses, that's that. And sort of through the ages, with artists like Pink Floyd, Daft Punk, deadmau5, we've kind of moved more towards the spectacle of the music production. You know, and events like Tomorrowland just go to show how, you know, high production value at these kind of events can really draw an audience. So that's finally sort of come through to the longer tail of artists, to those that want to compete and want to actually stand out from their other peers, because it's such a competitive space. And artists typically just don't make enough money from their art, which is a perpetual problem in this industry.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Thank you very much.
That's outstanding. Just a few words. So I'm gonna go on with another question, if I may. And since you mentioned your collaboration with Beatport, I would like to ask you, what are the long-term goals you expect from these collaborations? And what should a user expect from this point of view?
So I have to be careful here in terms of what I can communicate publicly. But you know, at the very outset, you know, one of what Beatport has been pushing throughout the pandemic and beyond is their Reconnect series, a way to reconnect audiences or artists with their fans. Largely, a lot of those events have been as fundraising activities to help, for example, organizations like the AFEM and the kind of Artist in Need program. So, you know, supporting Beatport by way of, again, removing production costs from many of these performances and bring in something that's more visually compelling, interesting, and free has always been a North Star. So, you know, as part of the Reconnect series, we started it off at Cova Santa last year in Ibiza. We worked with artists like Maceo Plex and TSHA. And as you know, that partnership progresses, it will be more in the same of course, powering more of those streams, powering more of those setups. There's a few very interesting projects on the pipeline that goes a little bit more involved, but I have to keep a little more quiet on those ones.
Okay.
Don't worry about that.
We can understand.
We'll have the pleasure to check them out ourselves.
But I have another question for your future plans, if can I?
Hey.
For example, I would like to ask you, are you planning something special for this summer? Can you tell us more?
For summer, there's a lot. We've got a lot of things planned, and I think, you know, we kicked off a sort of our event series. You know, we've had a huge influx from venues and festival organizers to help power their venues. You know, since the pandemic, you know, twofold. One, a lot of festivals and venues were cancelled, of course. So there's been a huge, you know, rescheduling of those existing events. But on top of that, we've seen a huge supply of new events on top of that. So essentially, there's never really been more supply of these kind of festivals and club nights than ever before. And, you know, those kind of organizers are continuously looking at us of how can we compete against our peers? How can we do something different that will attract more artists, more fans, sell more tickets, and engage an audience? So we kicked the series off in June. We had a showcase last week with Machine Drum. And this upcoming week, we have a show with Deadmau5, the Brooklyn Mirage. We're doing the Gas Tower stage at Glastonbury, which is a huge moment for us to be powering one of the main stages at the largest festival on earth. And those kind of activations will continue. Everything, you know, globally across festivals, events, artist-specific live streams. We're quite proud to have, for example, DJ Yoda using us on Thursday in 2 days' time as a series of live streams coming up. But really, I think the biggest one to highlight is probably more on the feature side of things, in terms of the product roadmap and what we're starting to really deploy. And, you know, for the last 2 years, we've built the software that enables people to create these 3D experiences. You know, through a drag and drop style, I can bring in palm trees and lakes and build my own world and broadcast that to any screen. But what that did was lower the cost of production, right? It made production costs free and made visuals very compelling. But what has consistently been our North Star driver and our business model is, how do we enable artists to make revenue from their fans? You know, we don't believe personally that monetizing artists is a good idea. You know, 90% of musicians earn $15,000 or less per year. They just do not make enough money from their art. So what we've been exploring is, you know, what artists do have is fans, and all artists have, to a certain degree, super fans. So what we've been researching and are now deploying is a system in which artists can actually monetize fans in the form of interactions. Now, what does that actually mean? So if I'm a fan consuming a Volta experience, you know, first and foremost, we're not distribution endpoint. You can't go on Volta.com to watch an experience. We don't think that artists should move all their fans from one platform to another platform, which is very expensive and taxing. So if I'm a fan watching a experience on YouTube, or let's say I'm actually live in a venue, I'll actually be able to control those visuals by typing in keywords into chat. So for example, and we did this last Tuesday, Machine Drum actually was our launch of audience interaction starting to become commercialized. If a fan member typed in Volta, this huge ripple shot up across the screens of the venue, as well as on the live stream. And what we're rolling out now is essentially exactly that. So fans can pay for interactions to actually control the musical experience and co-create with their fans, with their artists rather. It came out the inspiration of what we did with Imogen Heap with their live music video. And now we're extending it such that artists can choose any keyword they like. They have full control over how much it costs, the keyword they want to use, and what effects that keyword does. And the whole point there is, you know, Tracy Chan, Critic's head of music, came out saying that in order to make $50,000 a year on Twitch, you only need 183 concurrent users. The point there is you don't need a massive audience, you just need a passionate one. And that is very much what we're working through in summer. It's the launch of audience interactions. It's a way for artists to not only make free compelling content, but actually use it to monetize their fans. And that way our incentives are entirely aligned with artists, because, you know, our aim is to help them finally make money from their art in a compelling way. So that's the thing I think we're the most excited for in our are working through quite diligently with some of our artist partners. And I guess actually one other thing to go back to Eleonora, your point around Beatport, I think one other thing to mention is, Beatport have obviously launched the Beatport DJ software, a way in which they're trying to democratize DJing for the masses. So you don't need to spend, a license for the competitor platforms. So that's obviously of a lot of interest for us. Our whole point here is to democratize away from those who have the money to afford these things and bring it to the masses. So that's a thing that we're working through quite imminently, which is how do we have Beatport DJ and Volta sync up perfectly so that goes up to a wide audience.
Well, so we can assume that we are going to see you pretty much all over the world.
It's made sleep definitely an issue, but yeah, there's been a lot of pinch me moments over the whole project. It's incredible to have so much industry support from the wider tech community, but really, our whole mission is, whilst working with some of these amazing artists that are either investors or work with Volta, our dream is to convert the up and comers to being the next Daft Punk, and that's always been our North Star. To kind of look at those who have the talent, who have the skills, but just haven't been able to market themselves, so haven't been able to monetize their fans in the same sort of ways.
I really love this interaction between fan and the artist, because it's something that, as I said before, can happen all over the world, from all over the world.
Exactly,
very, very
exactly. Nice. And to that point, the thing that always amazes us is, and we had this when we raised our seed round of financing, people said, look, you built this incredible mixed reality tool, why are you applying it to music? Music is a small market globally. And we said that's exactly the point. If you look at something like music, which is worth roughly around $30 billion as a market capitalization, versus gaming, which is something like $270 billion, the fact that music is consumed 3 times more as a medium than gaming, for us, that's an intriguing point. And the reason is obvious why gaming is so much more than music, because you can monetize things like in-app payments for avatar skins and things like that. With music, you can't monetize people's ears every 3 seconds. So creating the structure to actually get fans to want to watch an experience rather than listen to an experience, for us, is a way in which we can finally grow to the market to a point it should be.
That's very nice, and we would like to thank you for your time, because it is simply amazing. Really,
yeah, it's kind of innovative, and I've never heard of something like that. Really, it's the first time, and it's something that it's outstanding. So congratulations for that.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Time as well.
Thanks a lot for what you've been said, and it's amazing for us.
It's been a pleasure having this chat with you. What you said was so interesting and outstanding, because it's something like you never see like every day. So it's something really, innovative. I can't find words to describe it in any other ways.
We struggle sometimes too with what we call it. So you're not alone.
But that's fine, because you don't have the words, but in a right way.
Yes, yeah, exactly. There's been a lot of, like I said, pinch me moments where, it's been very exciting, to say the least.
So thank you so much for giving us your time, and having this chit chat was so amazing.
My absolute pleasure. And look, if there's any other questions that come up, or anything else, to share, anything like that, just drop us an email. Happy to jump on another call. More than happy. Love what you guys are doing at youBEAT. So yeah, absolutely.
Honored.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We surely do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to meet you all. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too.
You too. Thanks.
You too.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Ok.
Bene.
E così si conclude il nostro episodio.
Questo nuovo
di youBEAT Cafè. È stato un episodio talmente carico di nozioni.
Pienissimo.
È stato un
Siamo stati bravi, ragazzi.
di fiamma in quel di youBEAT Cafè, e ci vediamo al prossimo.
Alla prossima.
Episodio.
Alla prossima.
Ciao ragazzi, un bacione, alla prossima. Ciao ciao.